All right, so I think everybody's back. We have, yeah, Jason is coming. Jason is in class, so he will be here right after his class. As I mentioned to everyone, today, this morning, we have Professor Dimitrios Buhalis with us to share his experience. He is a professor at the Bournemouth University in the UK, and he's spending the year here in Hong Kong. Unfortunately, we haven't seen him for a while because of the social distancing measures. But he's staying in Hotel Icon, so he's staying in the building behind him now on the screen, and yeah, very nice. So maybe I'll invite him to say a few words. And these are our Doctor of Hotel Tourism Management students, and they would like to get hear a different perspectives. They've been tired of hearing from me, so it will be nice to hear from somebody come from a different country, have a different experience, and so you can make some opening remarks, and then we'll go with the Q&A. I will ask you a question, and then you can respond. Of course, our students are welcome to ask any questions throughout the conversation as well. So hand it over to you, Professor Buhalis.
Thank you so much. Great to be with you. Thank you for the invitation. It would be fantastic to share some of my thoughts. I kind of like a good student, you know, when you invite me, I thought, oh no, I've got to do another one of these things. But then as I was walking yesterday around, I just thinking, what are we gonna say to these guys and what are they gonna be taking away? So I put a little presentation together. I cheated because I used a lot of the slides I'm using for other things. But I think as far as education is concerned and where education is going in the future on a global basis, we really need to think strategically about some things. And this is where we need to start thinking out of the box. And I'll tell you some of the things that you know, I'm getting old. I used to be very young when I was getting into universities. But over the last 35 years of my career in universities, I see the same problems, the same issues happening. And I've been saying since I was very young to a lot of people what I think that education should look like and where it should take us in the future. So if you don't mind, I'm gonna go through some slides very quickly to stimulate some discussion, some thinking. And I'd like you all to prepare one question while I'm doing this. Okay, so that will kind of give you a little bit of an area to discuss and to look on these things. I don't know if you can see my slides.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So basically, obviously, we're selling the encyclopedia and we're selling Tourism Review. If you haven't submitted to that, please do. And I'll set up, and we are ready to go, I think. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so great pleasure to talk about education, and obviously a lot of the things are happening in the Tourism Review and the Encyclopedia of Tourism Management and Marketing. A lot of the things I'm going to say are based on my research and also things that are appearing on those things. So when you're looking into tourism education globally, you see that the educators keep looking backwards. They teach from past experience. This is how I served. This is how I dealt with people. This is what I did as a tour guide. And therefore, this is what I'll be teaching my students. I think most of the educational establishments are teaching modules and knowledge that is focused on process and technique rather than emotion and co-creation. So it's much more formula kind of teaching. And it's all about skill development rather than intellectual capacity development. And you find that, and a lot of students, they say, oh, what would I learn by the time I get out of here? What is very worrying is there's a polarization between practice and science. You find that there are people coming from industry that they would like to teach a lot of the stuff that they were doing, or people who are coming from science, i.e. students who were very good, they had good marks, they were performing well, they were very diligent. And over the years, they kind of moved on through their education. They got a PhD. They mastered a couple of statistic techniques, and they're now assistant professors, associate professors, or professors based on their research output, but they don't necessarily have got industry experience. And quite often you find also polarization between domestic versus global perspective. A lot of people are really teaching from experience that's coming from one particular country. They haven't seen outside, and especially in big countries like America, China, Brazil, India. Quite often you find that people are only teaching about things that they know locally. They have not seen a global perspective. There's a lot of inbreeding, meaning that we are kind of bringing our next PhD students, and the PhD students become assistant professors, and then they kind of, so we don't have a lot of external kind of input into these things, and the usual prejudice apply like anywhere else. So a lot of you would have heard me before talking about 2030, and 2030 is only 6 or 7 years away, so it's not going to be a long time. But what I'm thinking is that our students who are coming in 2022, they'll do 4 years, so they'll come out in 2026, right? And a couple of 2 or 3 years to begin with, and then they'll kind of become more senior by the time we reach 2030. So we really need to start preparing our students towards 2030. This is an interesting slide which says which countries are more reliant on tourism, because quite often you find different education, different places operating in different ways. But when you start looking into what is the percentage of employment in a country and what is the population of a country, you start realizing a lot of island countries are having a much higher requirement for education, and we really need to pay much more attention to what kind of education we're offering to these countries rather than countries that they rely much less on tourism. It's really important that, because that is determining a lot of things on tourism education. Now, when people are asking me what's going to happen in the future, I take my crystal ball and I'm kind of looking to what's going to happen in the future. But there's some of the things that we can see around from different conferences and different players is really about how are we going to go to a new era of tourism, and what are the big things that are going to be driving us in the new era of tourism. I think climate change, environment sustainability are driving a whole range of different things. Then you've got digitization and smartness. And then you've got the globality, the global contribution. We've seen what has happened in the last years with COVID, how global our industry is and how things are moving between different places. And we see that a lot of things have got to deal with culture and how cultural identities and how culture is affecting tourism. And also we see how marketing will need to be addressing a whole range of different challenges, and then transported into management and engaging in different kind of processes towards maximizing the value of the co-creation that we achieve. So this is on tourism, but this is a reflection on education, because our students have got to deliver those, right? So it's really about training our students to understand what are the challenges of the future and making sure that they can operate in this kind of environment, which is very dynamic and very different. Now, of course, this encyclopedia brought a whole range of knowledge here, where you've got the tourism system on top, and you've got the resources coming in and value co-creation coming out. And education has got actually to manage this system and optimize the system, and needs to make sure that we've got equitable returns on the resources utilized. It's how can we manage our resources in this kind of environment to maximize the value that we co-create with all the stakeholders. So we need to understand a whole range of things about consumers. On the other side, we need to understand a whole range about the tourism industry and how the ecosystem operates. And in the middle, we've got all the technology, the mediation, accessibility, transportation coming in the middle. So there are a lot of techniques and skills that we need in there, and we need a lot of context understanding. We need to understand the context in such a detail that we need to operate. And then when you look into the external environment, that everything is coming towards maximizing the efficiency of that system, it's really about looking to planning and management and strategy. So here we've got strategic planning, strategic management, strategic marketing. Then you've got the market forces. Then you've got the exogenous variables, and then we've got all the technology and the infrastructure. So our students should be able to manage the entire pyramid in a way that they understand external environment, internal environment, be proactive and reactive to the challenges, create strategies, and manage resources in an optimal way. Okay, this is really, really complex. And quite often, a lot of my colleagues are telling me, look, in tourism, it's not such a serious kind of industry. There are, it's not manufacturing. It's not, you guys are quite, have a simple kind of industry. But in fact, when you look at the complexity of the system, and when you look into the fact that a lot of our customers are coming away from their culture and their comfort zone, and they're going to a hostile environment to operate in this kind of environment, it becomes much more complicated. So tourism is much more complex, and therefore it requires a whole range of additional kind of skills that we need to give to our students, and this needs to come into the curriculum. Now, we talked a lot about the Sustainable Development Goals, and by 2030, that they are set up by the United Nations, and we really need to look into how tourism is going to be in the center of achieving those Sustainable Development Goals. I think this is really important on when we're designing our curriculum, and when we're looking to each of the skills that we're offering to the students, what should they do in order to be able to operate successfully in the future, and how they can engage with different kind of players in the marketplace. Digitization, of course, is one of the most important elements, where you need to bring everything together and manage assets and manage processes and manage products and brands to co-create those kind of experience. And you really need to engage in everything, especially right now when we're talking about reignite of tourism. Now we're in a situation where a lot of the tourism activity has stopped for about 2 years, and we've lost a lot of human resources. We've lost a lot of people from our industries that have gone to different industries. So we really need to bring everybody back and somehow take advantage of our assets and all the things that we have learned in order to go forward. But the forward is very different from what we know from the past. So that's why I keep saying that, look, a lot of the tourism industry so far, a lot of the tourism education so far has been looking at the past. So chefs will saying this have been cooking for the last 30 years. Waiter says this would have been serving for the last 30 years. Tour guides, government says this is what we're doing in the last 30 years. What we've discovered over the period of COVID is that a lot of the things that we're doing in the past became irrelevant overnight. So we really need to look into how we can take these things forward. And one of the key things is that the end of the planning and the beginning of agility. It's really about looking to a lot of things, understanding our environment dynamically, and creating proactive and reactive kind of strategies in order to maximize the value co-creation. Let me get a glass of water. So when you see what's happening globally in terms of tourism, you see that there are different demand and customer needs. There's the need for value co-creation and service design. We need a lot of technological innovations that are transforming everything we do. There's sustainability and our environment, inclusion in terms of the rich and the poor, and how we've got diversity between the connected and disconnected, the able and the disabled, and gender and a whole range of other things. And we need to look into how we need to develop our human resources and talents to take advantage of the technology and the smartness towards implementing the 2030 vision and towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, in Bournemouth University, we've got the fusion strategy, where it brings together research, education, and professional practice. Because we really need to start connecting with the industry much closer. And we need the industry to come to us to buy our knowledge services and to work with us in developing those things in the future. And also, we need to go to the industry and engaging with our students and our education in order to take things forward. So the Bournemouth University 2025 agenda is all about inclusivity, creativity, excellence, and responsibility. And we've actually got a building that we call the Fusion Building, and it's designed in a way that everybody is gravitated towards the center to make more conversation. So if you really want to, for me to look into some of the big agendas about the future of tourism education, I think it will be job of the futures. First of all, it's really important to understand that jobs of the futures are not invented yet. A lot of our students will be doing jobs that they do not exist yet. So we really need to develop anticipatory learning. Anticipatory learning in terms of understanding what's happening out there and helping them understand how to develop their skills dynamically through lifelong learning to maximize their skills. Because let's face it, people will have a 35, 40 years career, right? So they need to evolve with that, especially on the higher managerial levels. They need to evolve with that to understand how they can take advantage of their skills. We need to develop key skills. That the key skills are not about how we are cooking or how we are managing tour guides, but it's all about innovation, smartness, resilience, and responsiveness. It's how can we learn to constantly innovate and engage. Because let's face it, most of the innovation that's coming in tourism is coming from other industries. And that means that we need to cross-fertilize with other industries to understand how other industries can help us develop things in the future. We need to bring personalization, individualization, contextualization in learning, meaning that each learner is a particular individual who has got particular needs and particular requirements, particular interests, particular backgrounds. And all the learning needs to be focused on the learner, because it's actually we're trying to enhance their life. We are not trying to deliver a curriculum. It needs to be ambient learning, meaning that you learn everywhere and all the times. So it's not I'm going to go to a class to learn. And that means that there is the end of the location or time-based learning. Currently, I don't know where you are in different kind of places, so location became irrelevant. Time became irrelevant as well. Currently, we have the privilege of all coming together through technology, but actually this video I'm going to post in different places, and people around the world, they're going to be looking to that. And they'll be coming back with questions, they'll be coming back with a discussion to see how we learn from each other, independent on location and learning. And time. And I think that's revolutionary. So because we've got the end of location and time-based learning. Technology will empower a lot of these things across different platforms, because you will kind of use different platforms to access similar kind of information that is personalized to you, right? Individualization, personalization. And it will be metaverse enabled. I'm doing a lot of work on metaverse right now. So it's really about physical and virtual blended. You'll be in a place, but also you'll have a lot of access on virtual resources that will be available somewhere. It will be focused on sustainability and inclusion, and those things will be central and embedded on anything we do. We need to save the planet. We need to reduce the environmental damage that we're doing if we would like to survive on the longer term. It needs to provide intellectual engagement and problem solving. It needs to be proactive and reactive and context-based. So we need to understand what's happening around us and help through education and training people understand how to react in particular times. Now, those of you who follow me on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, wherever, you'll see that I've dedicated my last 2 years effectively working very closely with the global tourism industry understanding what needs to happen within the context of COVID and now the war in Ukraine and anything else that's happening around, and trying to build knowledge and expertise in order to build resilience. So no matter what we were saying in 2018 is useless to a manager right now, because all of their parameters around them have changed dramatically. So they're trying to survive. They need to be global perspective and need to be future proofing. What's going to happen in 2030? What's going to happen in 2040? What's going to happen in 2050? And how can we learn as we're going across how to enable students and future professionals to update their skills and move forward? And this is something we need to provide from education from day one. So I think when you start looking into the future, and especially towards 2030, we'll have to have anthropocentric approaches to hospitality and tourism management. So human will need to be in the center, and then we need to be agile. And then I've got another 12 words that they start from A to look into the customers, digital, sustainability, and industry. And these are the pillars, basically, of what we need to teach our students. Now, in the past, or even now, we're teaching a lot of our students modules that they're particularly focused on particular things, but they don't look around them. You know, so when we're teaching, I don't know, marketing, we don't look into the process, we don't look at the operations, we don't look at sustainability so much. You really need to start bringing all of those things together and manage all of those things together. We really need to prepare these guys for the next 40 years of their life, and we need to teach them how to learn. That's the most important thing. It's not the skills that we are giving them, but we give them the skill and the discipline to keep learning and to keep finding the right information wherever the information is. And that requires agility and requires intelligence. So we need to kind of inspire innovation, inclusiveness, and internationalization through intelligence. I like the I words. Within the framework of all of the different stakeholders that they're sitting around the tourism industry. And we really need to understand how intelligence is connecting the pieces. It's when someone's saying, this is what you need to do, we need to understand what's happening across all different industries and how it affects the customer journey, but also from the human resources, the talent management journey, the talent journey, how the students are progressing through all of those things to keep up to date and being part of the industry. We really need equality, equity, and finally, we need liberation. So we need to take all the barriers away in a clever way. So we take advantage of everybody who is in the society, and we provide the skills and the tools and everything to be able to operate. And Ambi intelligence is not only about how tourists create value, but also how we learn in this process, how we bring all the different technologies together in order to be up to date in terms of teaching or in terms of learning. Technology is going to come everywhere, and you'll have a lot of robots and you'll have a lot of things coming to take manual jobs. And we really need to look into how the smartness and agility is going to enable us to co-create knowledge and value for all stakeholders, and that will need to impact our learning. So it's all about bright ideas that they're going to bring us forward, and emotional intelligence will be absolutely critical in this. And we really need to engage consumers and students as consumers of education and learning through emotional intelligence. I'm finding really peculiar the fact that we're all concentrating on mathematics, and we're all concentrating on formulas, and we're all concentrating on ticking boxes. And we're not teaching our students to go out and look into someone in the eye and say, what do you need? How can I help? How can I add value to you? Guess what? All the boxes and all the mathematical formulas are going out of the way the minute you meet a real tourist. The minute you really need to satisfy a real need. And the minute that you need to make someone happy. It's all here and here. It's hard. So we really need to teach our students how to connect intelligently with emotional intelligence with the stakeholders around. And ultimately, we need to teach them how they can jump from their little pond to the big pond of the world. Thank you very much. I just went through very quickly just to stimulate your thinking. Almost half an hour. I think you've sent me these questions, Cathy, but I'll be open to any questions. So you'll drive the questions with our students. So this is something to take a picture of, just in case you'd like to connect with me. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Professor
Don't say, as they
Buhalis.
say.
As you can see, he is a social media guru, and with thousands of followers. I think Facebook doesn't allow him to make any more friends a long time ago. So
I asked them if they can give me another 5,000.
yeah,
I even asked them to pay for it. They said no.
yeah. So, well, thank you for the big picture future thinking. And that is definitely something that we need to think about to keep our curriculum relevant. Instead of me asking you a question, let me open up the floor and see if the students have any reaction or follow-up question about any of the statements that Professor Buhalis just made in his presentation. Feel free.
I've got time.
He's very friendly.
Never bite.
Hi, Professor.
Hello.
This is from Jackie. So thank you for your presentation and sharing. And I have a question for you. So you mentioned traditionally we as THE educator, we tend to look forward and we teach from our past experience, but that's not right. We need to look forward instead of backward. And there are also some jobs that is not invented yet. So how could we have this kind of proactive vision as educator? Because they are not showing yet. How could we anticipate or expect these trends for future education? Thank you.
This is an excellent question. I think we learn from the past, but we really need to focus on the future. So past experience is really important in what we learn and what kind of base we have got in order to build on this. How do we anticipate for the future? That's a very interesting question because it's really difficult to answer in a straight way. Nobody can teach you the future, but I can teach you to look into the future. I can teach you to kind of look into what factors are going to determine the future. And then make sure that you take all the measures to create value, to create benefit for people, for stakeholders, right? And if you understand this, then you go backwards and say, how does it affect my research? How does it affect my teaching? And how does it affect my curriculum development? I'll give you an example, which you'll understand what I'm saying. Has anybody done dishwashing in a restaurant, in a hotel? Excellent, thank you, one person. I suggest to all of you to go and do dishwashing for a day. You will suffer for a day. You don't like people to do that. I'm afraid you're wrong. Everybody needs to do dishwashing because they need to understand where all this industry is based on. If you do not have clean plates, there is nothing a chef can do. There is nothing a hotel manager can do to satisfy your customers. Having said that, if you've done dishwashing, you understand how difficult it is, how painful it is, and you understand that you don't want to do it, right? You wouldn't want your kids to do it either. So here is something for the future. We don't want to be dishwashers. and we don't want other people to be dishwashers. So now you've got a value that you need to create, right? So you need to create a solution that clean dishes need to be arriving on time and be available locally, but you don't want people to actually do this. So that's how you're creating the future, by developing solutions. So what's the solution of dishwashing? Presumably it will be some kind of robots at some stage that they'll be doing a lot of the things that humans do not want to do, right? Have you ever done housekeeping and cleaning, and especially in a very big kind of place where you're going with a machine for hours and you go home and you kind of go crazy, right? So someone who had got to see the future and say, okay, if we get rid of jobs that we don't want to do, that may be that we develop materials that they clean themselves. I'm on the 17th floor and I keep seeing people hanging down from the top of the building cleaning my window, and I'm going, please don't clean it. Yes, I want it clean, but I don't want you to clean it because I'm really afraid of what's going to happen, right? Now, if we get in that situation, then us as researchers, we need to go back and create solutions. We may find the windows that they're cleaning themselves. I don't know how you do this, but somehow it need to be done. We really need robots that they are cleaning the pots and the plates. And let's say, look, if a robot can create a car, definitely it can wash a plate, right? So how do we see the future? By looking to the value that we need to create, and by engaging with all the different stakeholders, and by teaching our students not to say to people, this is how we do housekeeping. I'm fed up and sick and tired of housekeepers folding the beds, what they call the envelope style, right? I don't know who has ever taught them to do this. I don't know any customer in the world who likes to get into a room and have the most tight folding of their bed cover. And yet this is what we're teaching around the world. This is what we've done in the 70s. This is what you're gonna do, right? So back to your question, Jackie. It's really about what do we need to create in the future? What's the solution that we need? And how can we go back and teach our students to constantly looking for new solutions, to have multidisciplinary interactions with different players, and to engage in innovation creation towards creating value for the stakeholders. Long way to answer a simple question, but actually it's not that simple.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you.
It takes a lot of creativity on our end, and also inspiring the students to be creative. So
Absolutely.
students, yesterday there was a question about how do we involve the students to co-create the curriculum? It is tough, but we can.
Whoa. That's a very clever question, because what's happening right now is that the teacher knows less than the student. And when you ask students to actually create solutions, they are much more creative. But you need to tell them from the beginning that I don't know the answer. You need to tell them, I mean, the vast majority, especially the more you go towards Asia, the more you are required to memorize the solution. So the professor said that, I'm going to memorize, I'll say that back to the professor, and I'll pass the class, right? So we need to cut away from this. And we need to say to the students, here are some principles about what we're trying to achieve, and use your creativity to develop new solutions. Now, as you know, some of you will know, my area is really about how technology and digital transformation is happening. I'm a digital migrant. I got my first mobile phone when I was 30 years old. Kids are getting their mobile phones when they're 6 now, 5. They're grabbing the phone of their father or their mother when they're 2 or 3. So they've got a lot of solutions that we as educators never thought of. But we need to create that kind of environment where we encourage and empower the students to come up with a solution. So a lot of the conversation should be student driven and student empowered. So when I came to Hong Kong, I found I was teaching tourist marketing, and the exercise was, can you evaluate and critique academic papers? So I changed this exercise and I said to the students, can you create a marketing spot, a little video that you promote anything you like about anything that you care about in your vicinity? And everybody said, oh, I don't know. Has anybody done it before? Where can I copy it from? And I said, no, don't. There is no right and wrong kind of solution. It's really about connecting your brain and start looking around what you can promote and how you can promote. Okay, so creativity is something that we need to empower our students to do. And creativity is something that we have the responsibility to take the knowledge base that we've got and enable them to build on top of that and go to the next stage.
Well said. Any other questions?
Who's from Thailand here? Anybody from Thailand?
Yes, we are 4 from Thailand.
4 people from Thailand. I thought so.
Yeah.
You know, I did some work a few years back for the Dusit College in Thailand, and I went to the chefs, and the chefs, of course, they are the best chefs that you've got in Thailand. They're very good. They're very talented and all the rest of it. But when I said to them, look, you really need to look into what you're cooking and how you're cooking it, and you need to create recipes that are gluten-free and sugar-free and lactose-free and things like that. They said, no, this is how we always done it. Okay. You cannot do this. You cannot take sugar out of the Thai food. This is legacy thinking. We really need to find innovation to take things forward. We really need to teach our students to look into the different kind of needs of the society. 10, 15, 20 years ago, you'll put sugar on everything. Now you shouldn't. You need to look in the medical evidence. So it's this kind of, we've always done like that. We manage, we drive by looking at the mirror, right? So please tell your people to look forward. Tell your people to how we don't want to do dishwashing, but we need to create a solution for dishwashing. And I'll tell you what makes the best thing, how to make everybody think very creatively about dishwashing. Get them to do dishwashing for one day. They hate it enough to be motivated to actually do something about it.
Okay, so obviously we can tell that you're very visionary. How do you take that? And you've been an administrator, you've been a department head. How do you bring your faculty member on board to think in alignment, and how do you actually implement your ideas?
I was head of department for 4 years in Bournemouth. So in the beginning, people thought that I was strange, you know, when they knew that I was strange, but they were kind of saying, oh, why do you inconvenience me? I've created my lecture notes, you know, a few years back, and I'm quite happy, and I've tried them, and my jokes work, and everything is fine. Why would I go out of my way? And I think what we did is we work very, very closely with industry, because we're in Bournemouth, we're a seaside resort, and one of the first things that I did was to bring the president of Visit Britain. Visit Britain is the tourist board of the UK, effectively. So he came along to talk to my students. He's a very, very nice guy, Christopher Rodriguez. He's not there anymore. He has moved on, but he came along, and he's really visionary guy. He's really very clever, and he came along to speak to my students. Now, one of the guys from the industry said, "Oh, I'd like to come to that, but we've got a board meeting, so I cannot come to that." And I said, "Why don't you bring all the board together to meet Christopher, and then I'm going to look after you in the afternoon, and you do the board meeting at the university." And that created the bond between us and about 30 businesses, the most active 30 businesses. And then the businesses were coming to us to tell us their experience. And then they start telling us their problems. And then we were getting our students to go and do placements, internships, whatever, to be with them. And then we got our staff, my colleagues, to kind of work with them in creating solutions. So that's the way, and this is what I call fusion. This is what we call fusion. That's why I put the slide earlier on. It's really about bringing all the stakeholders together and create the mental space of creating innovation. And where you bring all of those people together, you kind of identify the needs and the requirements. And you identify how we can take advantage of the resources we've got, the knowledge we've got. Otherwise, all the things that we've published in the last 20, 30 years, they're useless, right? They're papers in a journal, right? If they don't bring impact to society, if they do not create solutions, what's the point of doing this? More importantly, why is the taxpayer paying us to do this? Because the taxpayer is paying for the research, right? So the taxpayer needs to have a return in better quality of life for people, and those people who are paying for us to have the privilege of doing research. So what we did and what we're trying to do is engage with industry and engage with real-time issues and learn from each other. The other thing is in academia, you bring different players from different disciplines. And if you have different players from different disciplines, then you've got multidisciplinary approaches to develop these things. So if we work together with the people from physics, or the people from chemistry, or the people from engineering, or the people from robotics, we learn how to create robots that are cleaning plates. We learn how we create glasses that they're cleaning themselves. So it's all about multidisciplinarity in the innovation, and bring everybody to have a passion to go forward.
Okay. Any questions from students?
Just a question for the professor. So in your fusion dimensions, you talk about industry, you talk about the industry elements and all that. So I'm Singaporean but working in Thailand, and I also work with hotel owners and hotel investors. Do you think they also play a part in this, because ultimately they are the ones that put the money in for all this innovation that we're talking about, and thus also contribute to the question of how we educate in the future?
Well, how long have we got?
As long as you have, Professor.
Okay, right. Okay. Our industry, I'm going to say that and nobody will like. Our industry is not a clever industry. Okay. Our industry is very human industry. So what you find quite often with owners and hotel managers and hotel owners is the fact that they're very hospitable people. They would like to welcome people in their house, in their properties, in their restaurants, but they're not the most they're not minded to optimize what they're doing, and they're not looking forward. So that is a challenge, and it's a challenge for two things. One is they do not necessarily support research to the degree that if you're in physics, if you're in technology, if you're in other industries, pharmaceutical, you know that the research is critical to go forward. In our industry, this is not the case. Okay. Having said that, there are two issues. One is, like any industry, it's like the innovation pyramid. People on the top, they are constantly looking for interesting things. There is a bit in the middle who we call the wait and see. Oh, let's see if my competitor is doing it, and then I'll copy them. You know, I'm old enough to remember black and white televisions in hotels. Why should I bring color television in the hotel? Oh my God. Oh, my competitor brought it. I'll need to bring it tomorrow. I'm old enough to remember websites. Why do I need a website? All my customers are local. They know me. I've been in the industry for 30 years, right? Now, so there are two issues on that. One is that the people on the top of the pyramid, they are moving. Second thing is that people who are on the bottom of the pyramid, they are losing competitiveness. They cannot generate enough funds. They cannot generate enough return on investment. Their yield is suffering. So what happens there is that either the top guys go and buy them, or other people from other industries are moving in and they take their assets away. So my strategy to that has been always to work with the people that they're clever enough to be able to share the same vision. And often people are telling me, oh, it's the large companies that they're doing that. No, it's not. It's a matter of leadership. Some very small operators are very, very innovative and they move very fast. Some of the large operators have got the right kind of human resources to be able to understand what's happening and take things forward. But sometimes you find that the smaller are flexible. They can have an answer. They can move things very quickly. They can invest on something. They can go together. You can call them and say, can you take 2 of my students to do this research in your premise, and we'll see what's going to happen in 3 weeks' time. And they'll say yes. And you find some of the bigger companies, you tell them and say, yeah, I'm going to inform the manager. I'm going to inform the ethics department, talk to the general manager, talk to the president of the region. And by the time you come back, you've lost the will to live. So you really need to develop your network of people that are like-minded, that they're looking to the future. They like to be challenged. They like to go out of their comfort zone. And then when you're bringing your students with these professional guys, with a multidisciplinary different scientists from different areas, and your future thinking, all of these things moving very fast and moving in a very creative way. And guess what? You've got something to stimulate your thinking, and you have got a better time. Otherwise, you kind of die. Now, what do you do with the people at the bottom of this? You try to help, but after a while, I'm just concentrating on the people that are here, because this is where we are creating innovations, and then we're telling the world this is the innovations we created, but it's up to you what you do. There's a saying in English that you can take the horse to the water, but you cannot make the water to, the horse to drink water, and that's exactly what it is.
Okay, so what can the young educators do, knowing what you just said? It is not just up to the deans and the chairs. What can they do to help move forward, and how do they deal with the bureaucracy of institutions?
Okay, I think first of all, they need to find their mission in life. What did you come to life to do? Is there something that you really want to achieve? You know, my friend who is doing dishwashing, maybe a mission of life to eliminate dishwashing from the human race. So we'll automate dishwashing processes, and we'll make sure that nobody would have to wash dishes for 10 hours a day. So the first thing is really to see what really makes you passionate about things. What do you really want to do, and what value do you achieve, and for whom? Okay, that's the first thing. So once you have achieved that you've got an internal motivation moving forward. It's not only professional motivation, but it's an internal motivation to do good to society, do good to the world. Now, that then can be formulated into research and an academic mission, which then can inform the curriculum and can inform what we do with our students. And then we avail our students to be part of our journey of development, intellectual development, academic development, innovation development. So, and then you work with industry and you work with all these guys to actually make this mission happen. Now, the bureaucracy of the academia is not actually that bad. A lot of people are blaming that for a lot of different reasons. What the academia, what your boss would like to have, your dean would like to have, is three things primarily. Okay. One is good publications in top journals, right? So if you are creating research that's going to save the world, the top journals will like to publish it. What the top journals do not like to publish is this repetition and creating the same study over and over and over again. Yeah, this study has been done in the US, and now I've done in Taiwan, or I've done it in Egypt. So if you're creating innovation, the top journals will publish. So your dean is happy. The second thing that your dean wants is grants, research grants. Again, if you're creating innovation, and if you've got the partnership with industry, and if you've got the benefits to society at heart, then you'll get grants. This is a little bit more difficult in our field, in management in general, but also in tourism and hospitality, because a lot of the grants are based on research, on technology, engineering, medical research. A lot of times we're seeing that we're part of the business, and governments will say, get the business to actually fund the benefits that they'll get in the future. Quite often, we get industry to support us with the things that we do, but we really need to be realistic on what we offer to them. What is the benefit that we offer to them, and why is that beneficial to them? And the third thing that your dean wants is satisfied students. Students who are saying, yeah, I've had a fantastic experience. I went to this lesson and I've learned so much stuff. Now, the more passion you have, the more you show your students that you are really cutting edge and you're bringing them together in solving the world problem. And also, the more you engage them with your partnership in industry, the more they'll love it. So it's not that difficult once you understand what you're doing. I think a lot of people finding that difficult when they don't understand what they're doing. So trying to sort out the world on something that you're really passionate about, create cutting edge research that is really relevant, that's really up to date, that's really making an impact. Create the grant applications that the government would love, or the councils, the research council would love, because they'll create a solution to the world, and then get your students involved, not just on what you are teaching, but on the knowledge creation. The minute that you get on the knowledge creation, they start building their passion about creating the future. And they take that with them. They just don't focus on, remember, page 263 to page 284, so they can pass the exams. How boring is that? But they are moving the world with you, and after you, that's your legacy, because they'll keep moving themselves to the future.
Okay, passion. So a lot of the things that you talk about, a lot of things that you talk about in terms of innovation, creativity, encouraging students to think outside of the box, those are generic skill or soft skills, right? So let's say a student come here to get a bachelor's degree, and you talk about interdisciplinary as well. So what do you see as the future of hospitality and tourism program? Do we need them, or would the student just go ahead and get a generic degree and they will be able to learn in the future on their own?
Difficult to answer this because there are a lot of different things. First of all, so far we've seen students going to a particular university physically to study in that particular university. And then they take a diet of, I don't know, 24, 36, 48 modules in a period of 3 to 4 years to be certified that they've got a degree on something, right? I kind of see the future, but I don't know when the future is going to happen. People are not going to go to one university necessarily. People will go to knowledge creators and knowledge providers, and they'll develop their own agenda that's individualized, personalized to their particular context. And with your MOOC, for example, people will come to Hong Kong Polytechnic University to take the modules that Hong Kong Polytechnic University is really known for and has got the best professors. And then they'll go to Bournemouth to get it from there. And then they'll go to Harvard to get something else. And ultimately, they'll kind of put together a portfolio. And ultimately, one day, they're going to get a certification that they've achieved something. Now, I keep saying that for the last 15 years, but it has never happened. I think it's going to happen one day because that makes sense. It makes sense in terms of getting the best knowledge from the best people. Because let's face it, quite often you're going to a degree, you've got one or two very good teachers, and then the other 40 modules are taught by not so brilliant teachers. So I think what's going to happen is that eventually people will be buying knowledge from wherever they can find the best knowledge. Imagine that you don't go to one supermarket to buy all your shopping, but you're going to different supermarkets to buy different things. Some of the things are the best in their kind. Some of the things are cheaper and you buy them for that reason, but you're going to different places to buy different value for different things. And I think that's the future of education. But I've been saying that for the last 15 years, it hasn't happened yet. And I'm very good at predicting the future, but I'm really, really bad at predicting when the future is going to happen. So I think that is the only, to me, that's the only kind of, way that's going to go. But of course, we all deal with situations where students are coming along and you tell them, why are you here? Oh, what do you want to do in this life? Oh, I don't know. I'm going to do a degree and then we'll see where we're going to go. And we've got a lot of these people in tourism hospitality. Because if they were going in engineering or medical thing, they would have tried really, really hard to get into the medical school or some of the top engineering schools. So we end up with nice people that they are not necessarily very skilled, or they don't necessarily have a drive to do things. And quite often we are seen as a leftover kind of discipline or school. And then what happens is that when people are arriving there, you've got 20-25% of the people who really want to be with us because this is what they really want to do. And they've tried all their life. They like to travel. They like to speak to people. They like to create happy memories. They like to create incredible kind of marketing for fantastic solutions. And then you've got people that they're kind of. So, Cathy, I don't remember your question now. I just was carried away. What's going to happen with the students? The students, I think they're going to go to where the knowledge is. Perhaps a little bit later on from their career. So they may do a bachelor somewhere, and then they may move on to kind of the equivalent of a master's, but from in a way, like a lot of other things, like apprentice or, I don't know, take Vodo, that you go to a master and you train with them on this thing, and then you're going to another master to train on another skill.
Yeah, I mean, stackable degrees. People have been talking about it for years, and however, not many universities are moving forward. I think universities are slow to change because of the existing interest, I suppose. They don't want to give up the traditional way of getting students and tuition and funding and all that. But I agree with you in terms of the future. Under the sharing economy, I mean, we should share.
But you see, in PolyU, we're doing the thing with, is that Houston and Lausanne? I guess that's a kind of a step towards that direction, where you have clusters or networks of education providers, kind of helping people navigate through different resources, different countries, different kind of skills and expertise.
Yeah, we do see that more and more in different countries. Yeah, 2+2, 3+1, and just the different format. It's interesting that you brought up the issue of leftover students. Is that happening in the UK, in Europe, in terms of hospitality tourism school?
Yeah.
Even with your admission system?
Yeah.
I don't know if you know about some of the Asian countries' college admission system is score-based, therefore that phenomenon happened. But in the UK, I assume you get to have an enrollment screening admission process, and you still see that?
You have a score-based incoming, but what you find is that the tariffs in some of our discipline are much lower than tariffs in other disciplines, and that's what they call the leftover, because they, if you need, I don't know what tariffs we're using currently, but if you need X number of marks to get to engineering, and then you get much lower to get into different areas, that creates an issue. Having said that, quite often a lot of the engineers or the mathematicians or people who are scoring very high will never have a chance in tourism and hospitality, because their brain is wired in a very different way. But we need desperately to improve the skills and the ability to identify value and to identify innovations to deliver that value to our students, to our researchers, to everybody around. And quite often, I said earlier about the polarization of industry and research. So you find very experienced industry people that they're coming to academia to teach what they were doing in the last 20 years. And the other side, you find very young academicians who have mastered a few techniques, but they don't know the realities of what their area is. And somehow we need to bring them together and to create that kind of bridges in order to bring everybody together.
Yeah. Okay. Any other question from students? Your last chance.
They look surprised. I think they were expecting something else.
They expect something. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you're like, ooh, like shooting stars.
I don't do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm doing K, L, W, F, N. Kind of.
There were definitely Greek alphabets in there too.
Omega. Absolutely. I didn't say Omicron with what we're going through, right?
I want to go to that swimming pool in your picture.
Where is this?
Not this one. The one that in your PowerPoint, there was a tiny little pool next to a blue dome.
Santorini.
Oh, that is Santorini. Yes.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I want to go to that pool.
That can be arranged very quickly, very nicely. Guys, if please travel. Let me know when you'd like to go to Greece. Can be arranged. Cathy has been to a couple of places, and she needs to go to some more.
Yeah. Just for your information, Professor Buhalis has done a series of Greek gastronomy videos, and they're available on YouTube. If you're interested, you can take a look. Well, we had a Greek gastronomy festival maybe a couple weeks ago, and he produced a series of videos. So Mariana, if you're interested, maybe you have looked at them already. Yeah. So he's putting a lot of work.
And if you're in Hong Kong, you may even like to cook some Greek food, and especially in the evening when you cannot go out. That's the fantastic opportunity.
Yeah. Okay. No question. I don't see any question, but I see smiling faces, so that's good. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Buhalis, for joining us.
Let's do. Can we do the feedback thing? You know what's the feedback thing? It's when I'm asking my students, normally people are asking for questionnaires. There's a feedback thing that you go, that is very high, that is very low, that is in the middle. So it's kind of, you've got a 80-100 degree kind of. So let's have a feedback loop.
All right, 1, 2, 3, let's go. Well, somebody get 2 hands. 2 thumbs up.
We'll go inside.
Okay, I'll send you the video.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much. Enjoy your day.
Stay safe, everybody. Keep happy, keep creating. Bye-bye.
Bye.